The bases dropped on a chilly Friday morning in Atlanta, Georgia. Soccer Down here, January 11th edition. It is a Friday flashback edition. We're asking you to join the conversation on Twitter at Soccer Down here with your favorite matches of all time. Can be favorite match from an emotional perspective, favorite match with your favorite team, favorite match that you saw live, the best quality of a match you've ever seen. However you want to take it, just tell us what the match was and explain why you're giving that to us as your favorite match. Tweet at us at Soccer Down here. Use the Friday Flashback hashtag. We got to start with this, and this is treading on our buddy, the Garlic Bread Warlord Nick Alifi's turf in soccer over there. But what in the bluest of blue hells is going on with this match today? Leeds and Derby. I'm trying to keep up with the updates. They keep coming. There reportedly was a Leeds United staff member stopped from spying on Derby County by the police. Derby County called the police in to stop the Leeds United staff member from secretly scouting the Derby County squad. This is from Leeds Live. So this is on the Leeds side of it. It was earlier in the week. Frank Lampard's Derby County versus Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds United. And yes, this is not the first time these types of things have happened around our friend Profe Bielsa. There has been stuff like this from the past. Let's see. Leeds United has not made a statement yet. Derby County fans are not exactly happy about this. They're a little upset, which is understandable. Some have called it the crime of the century, all kinds of stuff. Then others have said, so basically a bloke walked past the fence on public ground and Derby report him. So the game's going ahead. John, this should be a fun watch this afternoon.
Derby County Football Club can confirm that officers from the Derbyshire Constabulary were called to the Derby County Training Center because of a man acting suspiciously outside the premises.
Constabulary? Is that the correct pronunciation? We might need clarification on that.
Constabulary.
It's a constable, right?
Yeah, you are constables, but I think you are in the constabulary.
Okay. Not the constabulary?
Well, we can call it a constabulary.
I don't know. I honestly have no idea. I'm just wondering. I'm trying to learn this morning. I have no idea.
I think it's you're a constable who works at a constabulary. I think is how that works.
I have never, ever in my life discussed a constabulary or a constabulary or a whatever because this has never happened before. That's the beauty of the worldwide game. You learn stuff like this. You learn
it is Bielsa season.
It is Bielsa season. We'll see how long that lasts if this type of stuff continues. The man was not arrested. Police officers questioned the man on the edge of Derby County's training ground and released a picture of him, the back shoulder of him, in the back of a police van. He was not arrested. He was a suspicious male, is what was said at the time.
A suspicious male.
Officers were called at around 11:20 a.m. on Thursday, January 10th, to reports of a man acting suspiciously on Morley Road in Derby. This is from the constabulary in Derbyshire. A man was found at the perimeter fence of Moor Farm Training Ground and spoken to. Officers conducted routine checks, which were all above board. Despite media reports, no damage to the fence was found, and the man was stopped outside the grounds. No arrests were made, and the man was sent on his way. That's the latest from Leeds Live. There will probably be more because we're basically going into Bill Belichick territory. Is that where we're at here with Marcelo Bielsa? We're into Spygate now.
It's Spygate, yeah.
Jarrett, we've talked about Marcelo Bielsa a lot. We've talked about how much we enjoy Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds United and his teams. Did you expect this one?
No, not really. That's the amazing part, is the crime of the century. Like, this is a daily occurrence for, Bill Belichick. The crime of the century. So this is kind of like that map that's been making the rounds of where they overlaid MLS's structure on Europe. It's like, yeah, some things just don't translate smoothly, like Bill Belichick and his scandals.
So here's my question. In Major League Soccer, which club would be the most likely to send a suspicious male, or it could be a suspicious female,
a suspicious individual
out to observe another team's training session? Which team would be the most likely to do that?
Oh, see, that's your early morning QOD right there.
Yeah. I don't know, man. This could go a few different ways. It's hard, of course. And then you get into that travel distance. If you're committing the resources to sending suspicious individuals to fly across the country to scout,
you're flying Southwest, or you're flying Braniff, or you're flying Frontier, or something like. You're flying Spirit. You ain't flying Delta, brother.
You're on Spirit to make that trip, unless you got a lot of miles racked up.
Yeah,
and maybe suspicious individuals have a lot of Sky miles. I don't know, but yeah, it's a little different in MLS because it's going to generally result in a flight, unless you're, Dome Torrent's group going across the river to check out what's going on with Red Bulls, or vice versa. I could see either way going down. LA, same thing. You could have the Twin, but that'd be kind of too obvious if you send in the Twin over to watch LAFC's session. Bob Bradley, would he engage in this type of subterfuge?
Yeah.
See, I don't know. I don't think Bob would. I could see Peter Vermees doing it though. I could see Peter Vermees looking for any edge he could find.
I could see City Football Group doing it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and hey, like let's be honest here. What's going on? It's according to what we're hearing and what it sounds like. This is it's a fence outside of it's a public space. It's a fence where this person could watch a training session, but it's a public space. He didn't walk into the training ground or have a disguise or break in or anything like that.
Outside.
He's taking advantage of the wonderful day in Derby. And maybe watching a little bit of a training session. So
loitering.
How wrong is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. So I wonder how many teams have training facilities that you could do that to in Major League Soccer. That's another question. I would say actually probably a fair number because we're just now starting to see heavy investment in a training facility. It's a funny story. We'll see how it continues to ramp up ahead of kickoff today. It's 2:45 Eastern time, and you can watch that on ESPN Plus. I'm sure the chants from both sets of fans will be quite entertaining today.
Oh, Tafka thinks that Orlando doing it to Atlanta would be a thing.
I think they'd like to, yeah. They can't, though, unless they're going to send a drone in over the fence. That's the thing about Atlanta's training ground is you're not getting in there to be able to really see anything. I guess if you tried to do it from the street, you're not going to see much, and you're going to have to be using some heavy-duty binoculars, and that's going to be pretty noticeable, so then you're going to be asked to move along. So, yeah, that's going to be tough to pull off. Orlando's is actually the reverse, where I think they're in a public park, essentially. So, I don't know how secured it is, but yeah, Orlando might be an easy one if you want to go watch Orlando train. There you go. We'll see. But
Friedel?
Leeds and Derby is going to be fun. I mean, let's be honest here. I think a lot of managers would do it if they had the opportunity to, and especially if they didn't think they'd get caught. I don't think it's a small number, to be honest, at all.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying.
I mean, but is it cheating? Tell me what's cheating.
No, let's to me, if you're standing in a public right of way, and you're in that first 12 feet, shouldn't you be able to do whatever you want to do? In theory,
I would think. I mean, you called it cheating. I'm not so sure it's cheating.
Creative advantage.
Now let's go back to because we used the Belichick comparison. Spygate was far more in the realm of cheating.
Yeah, because you're in the building with one of your guys. You're way up in the rafters, and you're shooting. Aren't you shooting tape?
Yeah, you're shooting tape. You're sneaking in. That's a different level.
That's clandestine.
This is a little different.
I think this is taking advantage of the current situation.
Yeah, this to me
you're taking
Darby
advantage
needs to
of
secure
geography.
their training ground a little bit better.
Yeah.
Now we'll see what the rest of the details come out about, and we'll see how it goes down. There could be more to it. You never know. By all accounts, it was a Leeds employee who went to go observe the training session. So stay tuned. Derby and Leeds this afternoon. Frank Lampard versus Marcelo Bielsa on the touchline. Should be a fun one anyway. Should be a fun match regardless of Spygate. But now you have Spygate to add into it. And the Mirror is calling it Spygate. So we're all set. This is
apparently
go ahead.
Lampard was forced to stop training because of said individual.
I mean, let's get real here. What were you working on, Frank? I mean, what was so secret? Like, really? This is not the NFL where you're working on plays. You're working on a secret play, a trick play that you're going to break out at a big moment. You're not doing that here. Maybe set pieces? Maybe. But that's a stretch, too. If you're doing rondos, if you are working on fitness, if you are working on finishing, if you are doing an 8v4 with pressure, if you're working on crosses from the right side, if you're working on stuff like that, that's pretty general. So somebody's watching us work on that. Big whoop. It's not the same thing. It feels like a little bit of an overreaction if you're stopping the training.
That's on Monday.
It was on Monday?
No, overreactions are on. Overreactions are on Monday.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it's a little ridiculous. It's a little silly. So I don't know. We'll see. But this is going to be a fun little story the rest of the day, I can imagine.
According to TalkSport, the suspect was reportedly in possession of a pair of binoculars, pliers, and a change of clothes.
Now, the pliers is a whole different thing. That's where things take a completely different turn. The change of clothes could factor into that as well. That's a little bit of a concern.
The pliers turned this into a Guy Ritchie film.
Yeah, that okay. I was saying, well, I mean, what we know happened. I don't know if I could go as far as to say cheating. If you got pliers, I'm a little concerned about where that's headed. I don't know what the plan was beyond watching from the public space outside. Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem in my book.
And apparently Darby's now taking the complaint to the FA.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the FA rules are on this sort of thing. I don't know if there are rules. We'll have to see how this one plays out. But keep an eye on our friend Marcelo Bielsa, El Loco, and how everything goes down with Leeds and Derby. Lots of stuff going down around Major League Soccer. It's draft day, and this is pretty typical. You get lots of movement around the league, lots of rumors of movement, lots of stuff happening as most teams are a little over a week away from training starting. Your CONCACAF Champions League teams are getting started next week. Here's the latest that is definite, and then we'll get into a couple of the rumors before we go to our first break. Portland has agreed to mutually part ways with center back Liam Ridgewell. 34 years old, you hear that, a little bit of a shock, but you also have to think back to Ridgewell and Savarese kind of beefing a little bit early in the season where Ridgewell wasn't even making trips. He came back. He was a big part of their run to MLS Cup, but he will not be part of the Timbers moving forward. It's a big hole you have to fill. Minnesota officially gets the deal done for Osvaldo Alonso. It's a 2-year deal. They did use targeted allocation money. He's 33 years old. He spent his last 10 seasons in Seattle. Before that, he spent a season with the Charleston Battery. How much does he have left in the tank? And is Alonso and Jan Gregus going to be the pairing in holding midfield for the Loons that fixes things? It makes them a little more secure defensively. We'll have to wait and see. Orlando signed center back Alex DeJohn. He's a 1-year deal. He's an American, 27 years old. He spent the last 6 years playing in Scandinavia. Last club was Dalkurd FF in Sweden for the last 2 calendar years. They were in the second division in 2017, helped them get promoted to the top flight in Sweden in 2018. Seems like, he's a domestic player, which helps, but maybe a little bit of a flyer if you're Orlando, see what he can do. If he's going to help you maybe a little bit more with depth, we'll have to wait and see. Interesting quotes in the Cincinnati Enquirer from Alan Koch, head coach of FC Cincinnati, and talking about conversations with Adrian Heath of Minnesota. And I don't know if that's who you want to talk to as you're going into an expansion season based off Adrian's success or lack thereof in Orlando and Minnesota and some of the conversations that have come out of it. Heath recalled of his words to Alan Koch in this conversation, "You've had incredible success in Cincinnati. What you're going to have to get used to now is losing some games." Okay. Heath also said, "That expectation level has to be tempered a wee bit. Not everyone is spending big money like Atlanta did when entering the league. The rest of us, it's a process. It's a plan. The one thing that I think that people underestimate is how difficult that first year is in the MLS." Then Koch said this, "Rome was not built in a day. We've done some very good pieces of business so far to get the pieces we have in place, but we still have work to do in the remainder of this window. We'll have work to do in the summer window, and we'll have more work to do next year. We're not going to come out of the gates blazing. It takes time. It takes time to gel a team. You can even see that from our own experiences. Look at last year in the USL. It wasn't MLS, but we're playing the same game, and we were building a team in the same manner. We struggled for the first few games, and then we went undefeated all summer. We will go fight. We have belief in ourselves, and we're excited to go fight for 3 points in every game we play. But I think as a club, we need to be realistic that we had immense amounts of success in the USL. Now we're in MLS. Let's learn from our predecessors like Orlando. They had huge success as we did, but you don't go into a bigger league and expect the same results. So how do we as a club handle that adversity? How do we deal with that together with our fan base? The goal is to win every game. That will never change. But we're now going into a tough league where nobody wins every game." Interesting. Jarrett, thoughts on Alan Koch and Adrian Heath's expansion discussion?
I mean, I guess you want to temper expectations. That's fine. Just, I don't think you have to throw that much cold water on it publicly. I just don't like. I think everyone understands it's going to be tough as an expansion side. At the same time, you can have high expectations as an expansion side. You don't have to, publicly, throw that much cold water on everything.
Yeah, I feel like Alan Koch might have left the water in the freezer a little too long here. It's a little too cold. I think they've built a much better squad than Orlando had day one and Minnesota had day one. John, what do you think about Adrian Heath giving advice to the next expansion manager in FC Cincinnati's Alan Koch?
I would have put my fingers in my ears and just gone la 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 la. Just no, I don't want advice from you. People do things differently. Just because you do something your way doesn't mean that I have to do things your way. I appreciate, if I was standing next to him, I appreciate you telling me this, but we're going to do things our own way. Thanks. You want to talk about cold water, putting stuff on cold water. I mean, it's like you're taking a 16-ounce cup and turning it into a 32 all of a sudden.
Now, I think Alan's comments were far more measured. They were not Adrian Heath saying it's going to be 3 years before we're good. It wasn't anything like that. Definitely trying to temper expectations a bit. Understandable. I get it. But I don't know if I would say let's learn from our predecessors like Orlando, because that is not the model for how to build a team. Because, I mean, not even just year one. Year one was the best year for Orlando. It's been worse every year since. And I don't think Cincinnati is building in a way like they've learned from Orlando. I don't know if maybe that was just being said to be nice or what, but Cincinnati's got a much, I think, deeper, better core than Orlando had. Orlando had Kaká and a bunch of young guys, and the core was a lot of questions, and it showed. Cincinnati doesn't have the superstar. They have a couple guys. They have quite a few guys with good MLS experience now. They've added some interesting international players. Looks like Sam Stejskal is reporting that center back Johan Kappelhoff is close to signing with Cincinnati. I mean, one thing that Cincinnati learned from Atlanta is invest in the defense, and they have. With the defenders that they've brought in, you've got guys with serious MLS experience, guys with serious potential like a Forrest Lasso, and some internationals and some USL guys. You have a good mix. You have a lot of options defensively. That's a really good fit. I think Cincinnati is going to be a team that competes for a playoff spot for a long time. Don't know if they get it. They might not. A lot of it's going to depend on Fernando Adi and how many goals he scores. But I think Cincinnati is set up to be better than the 2015 teams when they came in, better than Minnesota by a long shot. Maybe not as explosive as LAFC and Atlanta, because they don't have a Carlos Vela, they don't have a Miguel Almiron, a Joseph Martinez, but their core is pretty good. And I think they'll be competitive for most of the season, especially if they avoid injuries. So I thought it was a very interesting discussion back and forth between Heath and Koch in this article. And Alan Koch and some of the comments he's made since Cincinnati came in, it's been really interesting to watch. I'm incredibly intrigued to see how the season goes for FC Cincinnati. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be better than a lot of people are expecting, but just interesting comments about trying to measure those expectations. Let's take a break. We'll get into your favorite matches, our Friday flashback question as we go. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. SuperDraft Day is upon us. Teams are jockeying for position all over Major League Soccer right now. FC Cincinnati has a bunch of draft picks to work with. We'll see what Alan Koch and his crew do to build upon that core of a roster that they have. Depth is always a good thing, and I think FC Cincinnati will be looking for that today in the draft. I'll be curious to see if there's other deals in the draft. We generally see some teams make some pretty big deals here on draft day. It might not be related to draft picks, but this is a day where you do see some movement around the league. One team that has historically been very busy on draft day is the Chicago Fire. Last year we had the David Accam deal. Jack Harrison was picked number 1 by the Fire and then traded to NYC. They have not been afraid to pull some triggers on draft day. Interesting that this week Nelson Rodriguez was on Extra Time Radio, and Tofka TLC shared it with us. We also had it on our list to get into. The quote that jumped out to me that I circled and dotted and cut and paste and threw over here was, I imagine that some fans were displeased with bringing back Pano. I think their ire should be directed at me, not him. I think Pano can be a competitive edge. He's an incredible recruiter. When we speak to players, they want to come. They want to play for him. Schweinsteiger was hoping Pano would come back and wanted to continue to play for Pano. In the interview, he also said they're looking for a number 10, and Jordy Mihailovic might have thrown his phone against the wall when he heard that clip, because he should have. They're also looking for a center back. Now, one question that has really come up about all of this, because one of the other big overarching themes here, and this is not new, this is something Nelson Rodriguez has mentioned before in interviews, talking about why they have struggled to get deals done. He talked about his evaluation of players and what he thinks they're worth, and maybe he's not calculating it in the best way because they're losing out for all these guys that they chase, and they're not pulling off the big deal. Andrew Gutman, left back from your academy, is not signing with you, or not even signing with you and being traded to another team like you did last year, Cam Lindley, who went to Orlando. You just aren't getting him, and he's going to Scotland, along with every other American player that we know. So, what in the world is going on? Like he said this with Pano. He said, the ire should be directed at me, not him. He said that fans should blame him on the roster. He said, it's my fault. And that was something that Tofka said. He said, anyone else hear the Nelson Rodriguez interview on Extra Time and just get the sense that he has no idea how bad at valuation and evaluation he and the club really are. He took the blame, but I didn't really feel like he felt he was to blame. Jarrett, the Chicago build and not build and dumpster fires and all of the stuff, it seems to be the gift that keeps on giving to me and you talking about MLS, because we've talked about this for 3 years now. Is it going to get any better? Is anything going to change with the Chicago Fire after, this interview is just very strange timing and a very strange thing to put out at this stage.
Sure, one day maybe. With this, are you being overly pessimistic if you say, because I don't think so at this point. I think there will be individual years like you had in 2017 where it falls together in a really, but man, I want to see how 2019 looks at this point, because sustained success seems to evade them. And I feel like some of it might have to do with the fact that you just have not figured out how to, reach out and grab that sustained success.
They have not been able to get sustained quality in their roster. 2017, they won 16 games. and it fell apart late, and they lost 4-0 in the knockout round to the Red Bulls. 2012, they won 17 games, lost in the knockout round to the Houston Dynamo. They won 15 games in 2005. They won 15 games in 2003. The first 4 years, they were great. They won MLS Cup. They won 18. They won 17. They won 16. He did have the shootout affecting that a little bit, but that's it. I mean, you look at a team that made the playoffs 5 straight years from 2005 to 2009. Lost in the conference finals 4 of 5 straight years. 4 or 5 years. 2006, they lost in the conference semis. Then, since then, they've made the playoffs twice. They're 0-2 in the playoffs, lost in the knockout round both times. And most of those seasons, they did not win more than 10 games. It's not even just the Nelson Rodriguez era. It's just the Fire as a whole for nearly a decade now. John, have you heard, can you think of an executive who would come out and have this interview at this stage going into a season taking the blame for not putting enough talent on the team, and this is after you just re-upped your manager for 2 years plus an option year? Everything feels very strange.
Okay, I'm trying to process other sports where GMs might have been saying something when they really shouldn't have been saying it or phrased it differently. So I'm going to be processing my GMs in my head for a little while. But correct me if I'm wrong. So he says in the interview that players want to come play in Chicago.
For
I think that was like yeah. I think that was like sentence number 2 or 3.
Right.
But you're not able to keep players in-house, and I can't think of any player that's knocking down your door to come play for you.
Schweinsteiger did. That's it.
That's what I'm saying.
It's double. It's talking out of both sides, because you're also saying in the interview about that whole thing that, we've chased these players, we valued them at X, they're going for Y, maybe we should spend more money, blah, blah. So people want to come play for your manager, but they don't want to play for the contract that you're putting in front of them. Mm-hmm. And you're getting guys coming through your academy who don't want to sign with you and don't want to play for you.
That should be that'd be a big red siren. To me, that would be a fire in and of itself. You're not keeping the guys that you're grooming, and the people that you want to bring in ain't coming in because you sit there and you put a piece of paper in front of them with a number on it, and they sit there and go, nah. But everybody wants to come play for you. Sure. Yeah, we'll get right on that.
It's a weird balance, and I don't know. If you lose Kappelhoff too, that's another one.
Good on Cincinnati if you pick him up.
There were rumors earlier in the week that he'd be traded for Tam and Gam on draft day. He's out of contract, but the Fire have been negotiating, so they have his rights. Matt Polster is another one who is out of contract and is leaving. Looks like he's going to Rangers. They are close to signing A.J. Reynolds, a left back, so not Gutman, but a left back from your academy. It'd be a homegrown deal. He's currently at the US U19 national team camp. Don't know how close he is to playing, and Gutman, you would have expected, if he is the Hermann Trophy winner, player of the year in college, going to Celtic, that Gutman would be able to step in and play now for the Fire. A.J. Reynolds, homegrown deal at the U19 camp, not so much. And remember, your left back, Brandon Vincent, retired at, I think, 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to do this anymore. Don't know if the Fire had anything to do with that. Don't know if it was just his life. I mean, this is a Stanford grad, so maybe it was just time. He didn't want to keep chasing it, but his experience in Chicago, if he was at a different club, I wonder if it had been different. But you lose a guy like Vincent, who was a U.S. men's national team level player, getting called into camps. You need to replace him. You have a guy that you can just flat out sign to a homegrown deal and put in there straight away. You would think he would be able to do that. He did enough to impress Celtic for a deal, and you don't get it done. That's the one that I'm just baffled about, because it is low-hanging fruit. It's a huge need, and it's a guy that obviously professional clubs have valued, and he's walking on a free. Polster walked on a free. Kappelhoff looks like you're going to get some allocation money for him, but he was out of contract. I don't know. I feel bad for the Chicago fans who have stuck by this team. We've talked about it all offseason. That is a massive thing that the club needs to figure out, is the relationship with the supporters and the relationship with the fan base, because it's bad too. I don't see it getting any better anytime soon if this is going to continue to be the message. I really don't. And it's a shame, because Chicago, as we said, when they came into the league, and then even again from 05 to 09, they were a powerhouse. And the league has passed them by. And I don't think they're any closer to figuring that out today than they were 3-4 years ago. So it's not good in this league when a team in one of the biggest markets is not just struggling, but cratering. And that's kind of where we are with Chicago. It's a frustrating situation watching it from the outside. I can imagine it's more frustrating if you're watching it in Bridgeview, if you're going to these games, if you're covering that team. It's just got to be frustrating. A couple other rumors to hit on before we go to break. Benny Feilhaber could be going to the Colorado Rapids. Sam Stejskal is reporting it's a 1-year deal plus an option. No TAM needed. The pay would be just under that maximum budget charge. Interesting. In Colorado is interesting. I want to see how it comes together. Houston, Lester Gretsch of Univision is reporting that his sources are telling him Albert Ellis going to Fenerbahce is inaccurate, and the Dynamo want to keep Albert Ellis in Houston. That's going to be tough. I think he is going to go. This could just be a negotiating tactic. Orlando reportedly close to signing a second division Brazilian right back, Ruan. He is 23 years old, playing at Barra FC in the second division, the Série B in Brazil. LA Galaxy close to signing center back Diego Polenta. He has been out of contract since the summer, which is odd, when his deal at Nacional ended. He played also in Italy with Genoa and Bari. 26 years old, Uruguayan. Reportedly, Schelotto reached out to him and is bringing him to L.A. We mentioned the Kappelhoff to Cincinnati rumors. Seattle could be making a deal on Nuhu Tolo, who is getting interest from Ligue 1. Sam Stejskal reported that the Sounders are open to making that sale. Remember, he was in that Guardian top 10 targets of the transfer window with Miguel Almiron back at the beginning of the month. Stejskal also reported that Toronto is open to bringing back Lucas Johnson, the forward they had on loan from Tigre in Argentina. They declined the loan, or declined the option on the loan at the end of the year, but they might be bringing him back anyway. We'll see how that goes. And Peruvian winger Kevin Quevedo, a player we've mentioned a few times, linked to New York City FC. Christian Dyer from The Athletic is reporting that that is not the case. He is not a target for the Pigeons. We're going to take a break. Thoughts on rumors, thoughts on silly season, share them with us on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. The Friday flashback question is your favorite match. For whatever reason you want to call it your favorite match, share that with us on Twitter using the Friday flashback hashtag. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back, Soccer Down Here, Friday flashback edition of the show, January 11th. Your favorite match of all time. Let's get into this because we've had a few come in already, and I want to see where this conversation goes. First one out of the gates was Nathan Pugh, Istanbul 2005. Not surprised, Nathan. Not surprised at all. Champions League final, Liverpool's epic comeback over AC Milan. Nathan said he watches the match replay at least once a year, up the Reds. I remember watching that one live and my mind being completely and utterly blown at what I was observing. There's been some other comebacks somewhat like that, but that's one of the greatest comebacks in the sports history. There's just, with the stakes as well, like, John, that's just about as good as it gets.
Yep. And I will admit that I did not get into international soccer until 2012, 2013. So I'm catching up on a lot of this stuff off of word of mouth and YouTube. So tip of the hat to Nathan coming out of the blocks.
Yeah, that's a massively huge one. Michael Head says he could go all wonky on us, and I want him to go all wonky on us, so I'm expecting something wonky. He said it's hard to beat the Champions League final from last year. Those Bale goals were ridiculous. That was a really good one last year, Jarrett. That was, a game that I didn't have a real rooting interest either way, and it was a really entertaining match with great goals, great drama, like all kinds of storylines. It was a good one.
Yeah, that was literally the antithesis of the Spanish-Netherlands World Cup final.
Yes.
Which will always hold a place in my heart for all the wrong, because the game begins with a flying drop kick and just gets worse from there.
Yeah, the other one like that, this is how it usually goes. You're talking about favorite match, and it turns into worst match you ever saw. The Netherlands-Portugal match from 2006, I think, where there was about 11 billion cards issued, and you had players from both teams like sitting in some little area, like outside of the locker rooms, watching after they'd been red carded. It was just two teams that had no interest in really playing a good match that day. The final wasn't quite like that because it's a final. It's a World Cup final. It's a bigger deal. But yeah, that one is one that I always think of with, man, there's just, everybody got mad at the referee for giving so many cards. There's nothing he could do. Otherwise you would have had somebody arrested on the field. And that's where that game was headed. Drew Gano his flashback Friday flashback memory is the first game at Bobby Dodd. I remember standing right behind the visitors' goal and just soaking in the 40,000 plus. I think it was 55,000 plus, wasn't it? Soaking in the screaming and cheering fans as the team was introduced. I almost got tears in my eyes. I was so overjoyed. I think that's going to be one for a lot of people always, because nobody really knew what to expect, and anybody who says they did is lying to you. People had guesses. I mean, I think we all knew that it would be a big deal. You knew after that game in Chattanooga that, okay, people are going to, be ready for this. People are going to have the gear. I didn't know everybody would have the gear. I knew it would be big. I didn't know it would be like that. And I didn't know it would have... It was different than a big friendly. It was different than a big exhibition match. It felt like people had been watching that team for decades. And that's the part that's so hard to capture. And I think some teams struggle with that today, even if they've been around for decades. Whereas Atlanta, from day one, it felt familiar. And I think that was a big part of that atmosphere and why people remember that game so fondly. It's one of those that, John, I think down the road, there were 55,000 because they were able to open that one section that was closed the rest of the time at Bobby Dodd that they were renovating.
Yeah, north end zone.
Yeah, it's like 55,000. People will say down the road, you'll have like 500,000 people saying, yeah, I was there. It's going to be one of those types of deals.
Yes. And I know that some folks in the timeline have even just mentioned MLS Cup for their in-person version. And you take the energy from game one at Bobby Dodd to the last game that's been played currently to packed house, MLS Cup, Mercedes-Benz. Fans are absolutely crazy, nuts, banana pants the entire time. And it was a point that I think that you've made on social media that can apply to both matches. You listen to the game back from the TV side, and it just gets louder and louder and louder and louder, and the energy is there, and you can feel the energy vibrating through the television. And those kind of environments are special. And the fact that you can add a zero and say that 500,000 people will say that they were at Bobby Dodd and that 750,000 people will say that they were at Mercedes-Benz. It's very, very special. And to be able to be in those places to see everything evolve has been really special.
All right, Jarrett, since John stole Scott Moore's thunder, because Scott said without a doubt the last match we witnessed at the Benz, the MLS Cup championship match, and he said a close second was the game at Bobby Dodd. The MLS Cup final, I'll remember the feeling of it. I don't know how much of the actual game, maybe outside of the goals and the big save from Kazan at the end of the first half. I don't know how much of the gameplay I'll remember because it was a solid game, but it was a pretty basic, controlled win. But I'll remember the feeling of all that for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I actually went back and watched part of it the other day, just killing time. But just the atmosphere in the air was just something silly. If we're going actual finals that were just kind of bananas and chaotic, another one with Portland, it was the Portland one in Columbus, where Portland scores in the first few minutes and then scores on a play where the ball very clearly went out of bounds, and everyone just stopped. And then Portland kept going, and they win their first championship in Mobfree, and I believe that was Michael Parker's fourth trip without a trophy when that one happened. That one was a little more crazy bananas. A special shout out though, if we're doing best games, and we're going to stick with Portland, a special shout out to the double post game.
Oh yeah, that thing was ridiculous. And it was referenced here this past weekend with the double post in an NFL playoff game. But yeah, double post to knock Kansas City out and give Portland a chance to move on and then eventually win MLS Cup. That was pretty bonkers.
And shout out to Cody Parkey for actually getting that kick blocked and no one actually apologizing for the things they said to him.
Yeah. Nobody ever apologizes. It doesn't happen.
I know. People are jerks in general.
Yeah.
Portland's involved in a lot of fun things.
Yes. People are jerks in general, except for our listeners, Jared.
Yeah, I'll buy that for $1.
I was hoping you would. I was a little worried about the delay there.
Yeah.
He'll drive the SUX 9000 off into the sunset today.
Yes. The double post game pops in my mind whenever we talk about it. That was a great game. I was like, but did it have a double post that defied all mathematics?
There's that. Shiva, last one before we go to break. For quality, Shiva would go with the Champions League final from last year as well. Beautiful goals by Bale, one of the favorite players. Sentimentality, I would go with my one and only Atlanta United Cup final. What it meant for myself, my city, and all the fans will always be so, so special. That's what we're always going to remember from that, is the couple of highlights. But yeah, like as a game, I mean, it wasn't a bad game. It was a great game if you're an Atlanta United fan. It was a great game if you had anything to do with Atlanta United as a club, because it was as comfortable of a championship win as you could probably find. And, you know, you didn't have to come back late like you did against San Jose. It didn't take, like, all of these different things in the match. The highlights of the game are pretty basic. You know, it's a goal off a kind of busted play. Brilliance from Joseph Martinez, 1v1. It's a big save from Brad Kazan in a big moment right before the half, and then a goal against the run of play early in the second half, and off a set piece, and a very well-taken set piece, and that's about it. There really wasn't much else. That's a good way to win a championship, because you can actually soak it in and breathe and not be freaking out the whole time. Let's go to break. More Friday flashback of your favorite matches. We'll be getting into those throughout the show. We'll also get into more silly season. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on a Friday flashback Soccer Down Here for January 11th. Big news last night at the league meetings. The MLS Club and Executive Awards were handed out, and Atlanta United won 7, more than any other club in the league. Darren Eales won the Executive of the Year, the Doug Hamilton Executive of the Year award for the second straight year. Atlanta United as a club won Ticket Sales Team of the Year, Public Relations Team of the Year, Club Retailer of the Year, Digital Team of the Year, Operations Staff of the Year, Supporter Management Team of the Year. There was a question on the AMA I did yesterday with the Atlanta United subreddit, and somebody asked about, why did Atlanta United succeed and compared to why the Thrashers failed? And I got into, soccer versus hockey and just the background and the foundation that had been laid over the years that we talk about a lot. But this is probably the biggest reason why. Because from day one, Arthur Blank has given the resources to hire well, and they've hired the right people, and the job that the whole club has done, a lot of things that you don't see on a regular basis. Some of us who get a chance to work with the comm staff and the PR side and the digital side, we get to see how good they are up close. You guys get the chance to see it a lot of times, with the work that they put out publicly. It is, as the award showed last night, it is an incredible front office across the board. And that's probably outside of all of those seeds that had been planted over the last 50 years. You wouldn't be able to bring them to full bloom, Jarrett, if you didn't have a staff like this to do it. And it's great to see all of them get the acclaim that they deserve as being the best in the league.
Yeah, I've ranted about this a couple times on Twitter about multimedia in general for Atlanta United. They turn around content at such a stupid rate. You see it getting retweeted all the time and reposted. Just the hype videos, the highlight packages, the extra access stuff. They do a really good job, and it really is important in the 21st century. It's 2019. That access and that ability to turn things around so quickly is so vital. And we always talk about the on-the-field product, but it's a nice reminder last night that the off-the-field work is really important and is being recognized as such around the league, and it's great to see.
Yeah, John, you can be in a great market, you can be positioned really well, but if you don't have the people to execute, you're not going to have the success that Atlanta United's had. The staff has done just an amazing job building on everything that's in place.
Yeah, and to see it, to Jarrett's point about how much they churn out and churn out and churn out, you sit there and it's like, okay, it's coming out, something's happening. You expect to see A, B, C, D, and E every single time out that there's a match. You get all the behind the scenes stuff. We see Beth Keener doing things and hosting all of that. I'd love to know the sheer number of pieces content wise that they churn out on a yearly basis, but it's just amazing stuff across the board.
Lots and lots and
yes.
lots. That's the
official number.
Exact number. Yes. It's amazing to get to work with so many of them on a regular basis. So congratulations, everybody behind the scenes at Atlanta United. It's good to see you folks who don't get out in front a lot getting that opportunity last night at the League Awards and being recognized as the best in the league. Really cool to see. So congratulations to everybody over at Atlanta United. Let's take a break, come back, reset, hour number 2, more of your favorite matches of all time after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Friday flashback edition of Soccer Down Here. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning, talking about your favorite matches of all time. That's our Friday flashback question. It can be favorite because it was really good. It can be favorite because it was really emotional. It can be favorite because you were there. However you define your favorite, please share those with us on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. Percy Herrera, I think, wins the contest, which wasn't a contest. First off, make sure you're following Percy Herrera because I inadvertently shamed Percy, and I don't want to be punched. So please follow Percy Herrera on Twitter. Second, this is his tweet about the Friday flashback. I grew up in Westchester County, New York, and our youth soccer program, AYSO, had the Metro Stars come out. I was playing goalie and had Tony Miola give me some tips on how to play the position. After a quick practice, we actually got to scrimmage them. Most memorable, nostalgic for sure. That type of stuff for a professional player, sometimes you don't even think about it. It's like, oh, this is something else I got to do. Okay, whatever. When the guys are able to actually be in the moment and do something like that, where Miola is able to talk to a goalkeeper and give some tips and then play a little bit with the youth team, those are the moments that for an athlete, they might not remember down the road, but if you're that kid, you remember it for the rest of your life. And it's just the power of sports. I mean, Jared, I think all of us who've been in sports, around sports, grew up as kids who love sports, you have those memories where you met somebody or you got to talk to somebody or somebody came out to your game or your practice and talked about the sport that you love. That's the stuff that sticks with you forever.
Yeah, everyone, especially when you're a kid and you're much more impressionable, and then even little things can feel big and create, imprintable memories. So, it's nice to see it when you have athletes go and doing that stuff because it is time out of your day to do it, and it's a public service. You ask people, and they have these memories. So it's not being lost on people, even if they don't always talk about it all the time. You can sit around a table with people and you come up with memories like that. It matters, and I think a lot of the athletes that we see get out and do stuff, jump out, even just like playing a good kicking around with somebody. It's a little thing. It's a couple minutes out of your day, but it's awesome, and you can see it the way it impacts people.
Yeah, it's an important part of all this, and it's something that gets lost in the shuffle at times. But we've talked about those seeds being planted for soccer in Atlanta. All of those players, if you played for the Chiefs, if you played for the Attack, if you played for the Silverbacks, if you played for the Ruckus, if you played for the Georgia Generals, the Apollos, and you went out and you did these types of camps or clinics, like it stuck with people. I mean, I've been going back and researching and reading about, some of these older teams, and people on the Generals talk about players from the Chiefs who came out and coached them, or they went to a camp or a clinic with that player and it pushed them to go forward and play. And then people who played for the Attack said that about the Generals, and people who played for the Ruckus said that about the Attack, and people who played for the Silverbacks said that about the Ruckus or the Attack or whoever else, and it's super cool. It's just such a cool element of it. And when you're able to combine that with guys from, the local area who grow up and play for that team, that takes it to a whole nother level. So very cool, Percy. Thank you for sharing that. And please follow Percy so I don't get punched. Please. I don't want to get punched. Tafka has a good question talking about Chicago and Brandon Vincent. Can players unretire and find themselves able to sign with whoever? I don't think so, according to MLS rules. I think Chicago probably retains the players' rights. They would, because they had a contract, and Vincent retired on it. So if he wanted to come back, somebody'd have to trade and get his rights to do that. That would be kind of sneaky and very underhanded, and something that maybe Marcelo Bielsa's suspicious individual that he sent to watch Derby might try to pull. So I don't think that would work.
When was the last time somebody retired and then unretired? I'm trying to think of across the sports landscape and ended up going someplace else. When was the last time?
I think Ric Flair's done it 30 times.
Ric Flair's done it on a daily basis. It's pretty common. Like,
Marshawn
not every
Lynch
day, but Marshawn Lynch did it. That's a good one. It happens. And in this situation,
Michael did it twice.
Yeah. In this situation, look, if you're unhappy and your club is a mess and you've got other job opportunities, you might decide, you know what, I'm done. I'm good. I'm out. And then a couple years later, you might get the itch and try to come back. See if he can pull it off. So I'm doubting it, but it is a possibility. But I don't think he would be able to use retirement to break his contract. That would be the problem here. The Garlic Bread Warlord is upset with Nathan Pugh because he is a Milan fan, and Nathan brought up a very bad memory for Mr. Alifi. So, sorry, Nick. Ha. Anyway, four-card Ahmed.
Nick can bring in his own.
He could. There's one from a couple years after that he could talk about. Four-card Ahmed said, did you see Almirone's Twitter? The only Almiron Twitter I saw that you might be referring to, four-card, I don't think is his real Twitter. I don't know if he has a Twitter. I don't think he does. I know he has an Instagram. I don't think he has a Twitter. I'm assuming, four-card, the piece that you were referencing was from a, let's see, MIGUE capital ALMIRON 10 Twitter that does not look official. And there was a post 44 minutes ago of Almiron waving and the wave emoji. I don't think that's his real Twitter. So, just saying. Might be wrong, but the fact that there's 668 followers makes me think, and only 31 tweets, that it might not be the one. So, don't know. Nothing's happened on the Newcastle side of this, and they're the ones that are closest to it. Now, something about Miguel Almiron that does need to be discussed, Real Betis. We mentioned yesterday that the reports were that Ajax had sealed the signing of Diego Lainez, the Mexican international. Well, they didn't. Real Betis did. So I think it's unlikely that Real Betis would still be in the mix for Miguel Almiron. I don't think they're going to sign both. This puts a little more pressure on getting the deal done with Newcastle because they're the furthest along. It doesn't mean somebody else can't jump in. And as Almiron's agent said, there are plenty of other clubs who have shown interest in this window. But Real Betis would appear to be a club that would not be moving forward on this. That would be my understanding after investing in Diego Lainez. So, John, I would say to fans, keep an eye on the bottom 5-6 teams in the Premier League this weekend because results could change Newcastle's desperation.
And, West Ham might be back in the mix considering that now there's talk that Marko Arnautovic might end up going to Asia because there's a lot of discussions about teams wanting to pick him up. So West Ham could get back in the mix as well. And we've discussed Newcastle versus West Ham in the Premier League aspects of everything. But there are a lot of relegation 6-pointers in the Premier League this weekend. And it could sit there and fix the flow and sort some things out one way or the other. If it could compress those 6 or 7 at the bottom, it could widen them out a little bit, and it could give us some answers as to what needs to be pursued. But Newcastle's still right in the thick of all of it.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on everything that comes out of Newcastle. I would imagine, however results go, you're going to hear comments after the match about it from the local media, and we'll be talking about that on Monday. Tofka chimes in on the Friday flashback that the first match at Bobby Dodd, it was the first Atlanta match for him too. Prior to that day, professional soccer was only something I watched. From that day on, it was something I lived. It's a really cool quote, Tofka. Also just considers himself blessed to have been at both Bobby Dodd and the Benz for those 2 games, especially as a South Carolina native. Jarrett, what's one of your favorite games that you think back to? And if somebody asks what's the favorite game you ever saw, that you would say off the top of your head?
Oh, man, I think it's because it's very fresh in my head right now. But the second leg of the Cascadia this year in the playoffs with Seattle and Portland, just playing with their hair on fire for 120 minutes and then penalties. That's really fresh in my head right now. That's on the top of my head, just because that game literally had everything. Did goalkeeping errors, had a good volley, had weird penalties, penalty kicks in a game where I was like, this is great. The people who are going through this probably just knocked 10 years off their life. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about me right now, and me is happy.
That was a good one. Montreal-Toronto from 2016 was a really good one, too. That was kind of bonkers. From an MLS postseason perspective, I don't know if anything can beat the 96 MLS Cup final, because it was played in a monsoon, and the conditions were just stupid, but you had to play it because it was the first final, and it was in a national TV window that you weren't going to postpone it. You weren't going to push it back to the next day. You actually had 30,000 plus in the building at Foxborough in a monsoon what was it? It was a nor'easter. Sorry, that's the official terminology. It was ridiculous, and it was cold, and it was raining, and there were puddles all over the field, and it affected the game. But it was another one of those dramatic comebacks. It was 2-0 LA Galaxy, and DC United came back and tied it, and then won on a golden goal in extra time. It was a great way to cap the first year of the league. Another MLS match would be the 2004 Eastern Conference Final. That was a 1-game conference final, and it went to penalties between DC and New England. One of the last great games at RFK, DC won on penalties. Nick Raimondo was ridiculous because Nick Raimondo is always ridiculous. It was just a great back-and-forth match, and that was part of that New England era of just great teams that couldn't quite get it done. That's one that holds up for me, quality-wise. That was at a time when MLS wasn't nearly as good as it is now, but overall quality of that match and atmosphere, that one holds up, and that's one that's definitely one to watch. I think the whole thing is on YouTube. I want to say Kick TV posted it a while back, so look out for that one. That was a fun one. John, what about you? What stands out to you as some of your favorite matches?
From a viewing perspective through the telly, I'll go with Manchester City QPR from Decision Day from a couple of years ago. And just the bonkers, is it Manchester United? Is it Manchester City? QPR takes a lead, then they go a man down after Joey Barton headbutts folks and then attacks Sergio Aguero from behind, and then 2 goals in stoppage time with Aguero and the Martin Tyler call that everybody will remember, or the Ian Dark and the Steve McManaman call, since Macca had no voice that day on ESPN. Then for me, secondarily, it would be the Women's World Cup final from the Rose Bowl. And that one's always stuck with me as one of the first ones from a television perspective. But in person, I'll go with my Georgia Generals game at DeKalb Memorial Stadium, because that was the first time that I really got to see it in person.
Who did they play?
I think it was Jacksonville.
The T-Men?
I think so. I have the program from the game
North American
somewhere.
Soccer League.
I have the program buried somewhere in my stacks. I did not let that program go.
Yeah, you got to find that program because I need to see this, first off. Star Spangled Soccer, the Georgia Generals, that was their tagline.
You know it.
Which is just hideously bad. But anyway, they played the Carolina Lightning as well in that season. Not Lightning, Lightning with an apostrophe at the end because it was 1982. The Jacksonville T-Men, there were some wacky team names in the 1982 American Soccer League season. I think Oklahoma City had a pretty stupid one, if I remember right.
I Calvary or something?
No, it was far worse than that. I want to say it was like the City Slickers or something. Yes, it was. The Oklahoma City Slickers.
The Oklahoma City Slickers, yes.
That's it. It wasn't Jacksonville because they weren't in the league that time. So I'm not sure who it was you saw. Detroit Express ended up winning the league. They moved over from the NASL as well. The Pennsylvania Stoners is always a favorite. That always holds up. That happened.
David Chadwick is the coach?
Yes. And the Nashville Diamonds were also in the American Soccer League at that time. So I'm surprised there haven't been any Pennsylvania Stoners gear that has come out as a retro fit because, I mean, it's the Penn Stoners. Come on. That's just awesome. Anyway, let's take a break, get into more favorite matches as we go after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here. January 11th. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. Friday Flashback is your favorite matches. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Share yours with us. A couple of mine that stand out, just kind of off the top of my head. You mentioned the Women's World Cup final from 1999. The one that I will always remember is the 2012 Olympic semifinal between the United States and Canada from Old Trafford, where the U.S. won in extra time after scoring a late equalizer to send it to extra time. Arlo White was on the call because it was on NBC Sports Network during the Olympics. It was unbelievable. It's probably the best women's game that I've ever seen because the U.S. and Canada really don't like each other in women's soccer. So you had a bit of an edge to it, some grit to it. It was really good stuff. Hopefully we get to see some games like that this summer in the World Cup. The year before the World Cup, the Abby Wambach goal late to beat Brazil, that's another one that I'll always remember on the women's national team side. This leads us to a little bit of news that's out there. Yesterday was the NWSL draft, and there's a couple things that have come out in the NWSL in the last few days. The Utah Royals are adding a reserve team in the WPSL. I don't know if the WPSL is exactly like the NPSL in that it can be semi-pro. If it can, and the Royals can really truly use it as a reserve team, that's awesome. And hopefully you see more NWSL teams utilize the WPSL in that way. The NWSL announced yesterday some upgrades going into 2019, which is good. They've increased the roster size from 20 to 22. There's also 4 additional players that can be added at the league minimum that don't count against the team's salary cap. The salary cap overall has gone up from $350,000 a year to $421,500. That's a good increase. The minimum salary is up a little bit. It's up to $16,538, and that would just be for the season. It's not a 12-month contract. That's up from $15,750. The maximum salary is up to $46,200. That's up from $44,000. You also in NWSL have essentially like designated players, national team players that are paid by their federation. The U.S. and Canada have invested in the league like that. Mexico did. I don't think they still are. I think the Mexican Federation and Mexican national team players are not falling under that. It's going to be an interesting year for the NWSL guys because of the Women's World Cup, and you're going to have national team players miss long stretches of the season because of the World Cup in the summer. It's also, as we've talked about since last year, Jarrett, it's a critical year for the NWSL. It's year number 7. It's the longest running professional women's soccer league in United States history. It feels like they kind of cut some of the bigger issues out last year with Kansas City moving to Utah. That was an upgrade. Boston going away. You still have to deal with Sky Blue, but it feels like the league is maybe solidified a little bit. But what's next? Like, okay, how do you get from here to what's next? That feels like the big question for me going into 2019 for the NWSL.
Yeah, this is Sky Blue is still Sky Blue still I think has to be really fully figured out or dealt with. I think there's still a little you can work on there, but I mean, yeah, you've been cutting fat off and it's been working. It's stabilized. It's moving in the right direction. It's great to see. But yeah, you're right. This will be a big year, especially when you're missing some of these national team players, and it'll be a nice chance for the Lynn Williams of the future, whoever that might be, to really step up and say, I deserve to be with your national team program. And it's not just the American national team program. It's nations all around the world where you have players from all over the globe in this league. They're looking for chances. It's not just the U.S. and trying to find somebody who can jump on Jill Ellis' squad. Every country is going to be looking for that. One that I'm going to be really interested in watching for the World Cup is, up the road, North Carolina Courage. You have Abby Ersick, who retired from national team play, went back after having it out with the Federation very publicly about pay, and went back to the national team. They're in the World Cup now. And you've got a lot of really good stories with this World Cup coming up, and we should keep you think you should keep a weather eye on the NWSL during that stretch to see what when teams don't have their national team players in there, who's stepping up, who's doing what. This could be a really interesting year for the league in terms of quality of play, in terms of finding, some marketable stars who you didn't expect to find. It could absolutely happen.
Yeah, I think it needs to happen. Players who are outside of the national team picture, but who can be those marketable stars. It can't just be the national team players. And this is a year to to do that. The game of the week returns on Lifetime. April 13th is when that gets back underway. I think it's the last year of the deal with Lifetime, John, and Lifetime has given the league a home on TV. I think they still need to figure out the streaming component because it's been inconsistent and it's not always easy to track down how to watch NWSL matches, but Lifetime has invested in the league. They're not a typical TV partner that is just off to the side. They're an investor in the league, and I think they'll have a say in whatever goes down moving forward. But what else can the league do, I think, to grow, in your opinion? What else can the NWSL do in 2019, in a World Cup year, to grow going forward?
Well, I mean, you mentioned the streaming component. We all remember what happened with Go 90 last year and the issues that were associated with it before Go 90 went away. I think that outside of the games being on Lifetime, I would love for the league to actually have a league CEO, a league president. I think that, thank you. Just somebody at the top of the ladder who can be that individual that you can put out there in interviews, in the public forum, in whatever situation, making the rounds in each of the cities, making the rounds in prospective cities, sitting there saying, okay, we understand how important this year is. You know, we'd like your input. We'd like your help in making sure that the league grows. I'd love to see the Sky Blue situation stabilized. I know that we've heard talk about teams in other markets and Barcelona getting involved. I'd like to see stable ownership, increase the number of franchises, because I'd like to see the game grow in markets where I think it's deserved. So for me, it's get a commissioner, get that unifying voice out there, get that person at the top of the pyramid, and then have that person sit there and be your lead promoter off the pitch to make sure that the game can grow in cities where we know it can succeed when it comes to having an NWSL franchise.
It's a critical year for the NWSL, in my opinion. I think this is the year that positions the league going forward, and they have to get the Sky Blue situation right. That can't drag on the way it has been, and I don't really know what's been done since the season ended to change it. That has to be upgraded. They have to be fully professional, both in money being spent and in attitude and just perception, because they're not right now. I think they have to plan properly for expansion, and all these things I think would be easier if they did make the decision on what they're going to do with how the league is run. They don't have a commissioner. They haven't had one in years since Jeff Plush stepped down. It's been Amanda Duffy on a interim basis essentially for, I think, a year and a half. That's craziness. Like, why is this not getting done? Either Amanda Duffy's the commissioner or somebody else needs to be hired as the commissioner. It can't keep continuing this way, because it feels, and the perception that it puts out there is, this is not solid. It makes no sense. Makes absolutely no sense. So that needs to be the number one thing the league deals with. They need to get the accessibility for people to watch and people to read and people to know about the league, increase that, and just keep increasing the quality. This needs to be, I think the opportunity is there for the NWSL to be the best women's league in the world. I don't know if it is right now. And I think that should be the goal, because that is the possibility that's out there. And hopefully they can figure it out. And down the road, hopefully Atlanta has a team. I would love to see Atlanta in WSL at some point. Rumor from our buddy Ivis Galarsep about today's draft on the MLS side. He is hearing that the Rapids and Chicago Fire are discussing a trade. Allocation money to Chicago for the Rapids moving up to the number 5 overall pick, and Ivis is hearing that could be Maryland goalkeeper Dane St. Clair. We got into goalkeepers and situations, and Zach McMath is now gone from Colorado. Getting a guy from the college ranks, that's another position. We talked about college players and what positions you can look at, and outside back was one. Goalkeeper's another. where it's not as much of a negative impact on a goalkeeper to spend time in college. If you feel like Dane St. Clair is a goalkeeper that can be with you for 10 years, yeah, it's worth moving allocation money to get him. I think it's a pretty smart move for Colorado, if you ask me.
And frankly, I'm for anything that brings Colorado up in the standings because of what they've meant to the league. So over time, so just look, anything that can improve the product that was there last year, I'm all for it. I'll sign off and give it a check mark.
Jarrett, rumors out of Manchester City are receiving interest from Spanish, French, and Dutch clubs for Yangel Herrera, with a decision on his future expected very soon. He was on that 2-year loan to New York City FC. 2 years are up. Don't think he's going to factor into Manchester City next year or this year or now. How much of a critical loss for NYC would it be if Herrera goes on loan to or gets sold to a Spanish or French or Dutch club if you're NYC? I mean, how big does that hurt them?
I think substantial is a fair word. I mean, because it's on top of other losses you've already felt this offseason. You're still not really lined up yet with the striker that you're, to replace David Villa. It looks like Johan Berget is going to, head back to Europe. You've got holes to fill. Those are just the main ones that are popping into my head at this very moment. It seems to be an offseason of loss, and this is going to be a really weird thing with New York City with the way you've got the partnership with Man City. That you could have a guy like Herrera who comes in. It's really good, but he's going to be on a loan for Man City, so you're kind of on the other end of the puppet strings here, and you're going to have times like this where things can be going really well. A couple guys leave out on loan because their loan's done. Man City wants to move them, wants to use them over there, that sort of thing. I think you're always going to have to get really creative if you're New York City, and this is going to be a year where they're going to have to get creative in this January window.
If New York City goes into training camp and they're about a week away without any strikers in the team, and that would be the case if Berget leaves, without your key figure that you've built the club around from day one in David Villa, and now without your engine in Yangel Herrera, NYC might not make the playoffs. I mean, that's the type of year you're talking about because they don't have young players coming through. Their academy hasn't done a whole lot. They have a couple of homegrown guys that are very young. You didn't have a lot of guys on the bench last year that can step into big positions now. Jonathan Lewis would probably be the one, but he's out wide. And are you going to turn to him because you haven't really? You want to see who they replace him with because they're going to have to go sign a central midfielder. They're going to have to go get a couple of forwards. But right now, I'd be worried about NYC making the playoffs if Herrera's not back. I would be very worried about them making the playoffs. And what does that do to that club in New York if they fall that far, that fast, and have no star power in that club? Could be some very sparse crowds at Yankee Stadium in 2019 for NYCFC. Let's take a break, come back. More favorite matches on the other side of the break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Polinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, January 11th edition, Friday flashback. Your favorite match of all time is the question on the table, and we have a couple more we'll get into. Have to get into reports yesterday. Doug Robertson confirmed it. Felipe Cardenas, I believe, was first with it about Scott Donnelly leaving Atlanta United, leaving the head coaching position with ATL UTD2. Felipe mentioned that it was for a stateside role with a Premier League club. Don't know if that's in like a player development role, if that's in like a scouting role, if it's in a more like an academy type of role. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. I was a little surprised, just because I think maybe a little bit of the timing, but this is a second team. This is a reserve team. It is structured a little bit differently. Things go a little differently with it. I think the obvious question, and the Colonel asked about it, is it related to Frank de Boer and his arrival? It could be. It could have something to do with it. I mean, the way Felipe worded it, I didn't get that impression, and maybe it's a little bit of both, but it could be because the second team, Atlanta United 2, it is an extension of the first team. I think different clubs approach things in a different way. Sometimes we see clubs have their academy staff and their reserve team staff that is separate from the first team in terms of staffing decisions. They're more institutional. They're part of the club and they stay part of the club and they work with the first team, but they are in a way separate from that. Others, the reserve team is absolutely an extension of the first team. This is year 2 of Atlanta United 2, so this could be a work in progress. But I don't know why, I don't know when this all started to go down, but I can tell you from having a chance to talk to Scott many times during the season, he was a perfect fit for the first year of Atlanta United 2. And I thought that he was a really good bridge between the academy and the first team. And what I really appreciated was how thoughtful he was in terms of anytime we had a question, he was always very open in answering it, but very thoughtful about the way he constructed his teams and lineups and systems off what was good for the club and what made sense for the club. And I think John Gallagher is a prime example of that. Gallagher was forced into playing in a defensive role due to availability for a couple of matches, and he performed, and the club wanted to see more of him. So Donnelly had to shape the lineups and game plans around this is something the club wants to see more of. This is a potential opportunity for a young player to increase their standing in the club and add another dimension. And I'm going to try to make that happen for them. I thought he did a very good job with that type of stuff. And the way that the team finished, and John, this is something we talked about a lot on those games, the way the team finished the season after a difficult year and without a ton of bodies in those last couple of months and playing 2 games a week every week for the last month, they performed really well at the end, and they fought really hard at the end, and they pulled some big results from good teams at the end. To me, that shows how much they enjoyed playing for Scott.
And to see, for me and for both of us when we were there in the booth, to be able to see the growth of players, to see them grow into roles, to see their games expand, and to see what players were there that Scott was dealing with on a game-by-game basis and dealing with that schedule compression at the end. What was it? It was at 8 matches in 6 and 21 days, and so it was like 8 and shortly more than that.
Something like that.
You could see the light come on for a couple of players, and Gallagher was one of them. Miles was another, and you see a guy like a Jackson Conway come in. You see a guy like a Dylan Gaither come in and rescue a point. I want to say it was against Indy 11 late, and to see them play with Scott's ideas, to see them play with what has been put in front of them, to play for each other that way. For me, it was a special run-in to see what Atlanta United 2 could be down the line. And obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing how the development is for year 2. But to have someone like Scott go in there and just create what he was able to create, I think it was very, very special for year 1 to see something that was probably a year ahead of schedule. And see Scott do what he and the staff do what they did with the players that were there, and to see them all grow. I thought it was a great ending to a season of growth.
Yeah, it was a great fit for year 1, and now we'll see what's next, both for Scott and for the club. Jarrett, you had a chance to talk to Scott a lot of times after games, and a lot of times after games that, from a results standpoint, were difficult. We've talked about it before. I think you always appreciated, just how open he was in having those conversations, even at times where he probably didn't want to.
Yeah, I can understand him not wanting to sometimes because they were tough results. And even when the results weren't reflective, you could hear it in his voice sometimes. They're just frustrated with young guys trying to figure the game out. And I think that's just par for the course with young players because they can do it. It's just a matter of trying to get it all unlocked. It's like watching a baby horse run. You're just waiting for all of the coordination to fall into place. And I think sometimes we just get antsy waiting, knowing, when they put it together, it's going to be amazing. And just watching them figure it out is exciting, but sometimes it's frustrating because what it can be, and they know it can be. It just takes a minute to put it all together. Scott was pretty open about stuff, and really patient with us. As we're picking his brain about everything, and he got handed some really weird squads because of what the first team needed with injuries and trying to get guys playing time, and really curious to see where he lands and what he does going forward with the stateside thing with this next opportunity. But best of luck to him on it. I'm excited to see what the academy looks like going forward, though.
Yeah, I'm interested to see the links between academy and first team with Atlanta United. Who replaces Scott and what kind of approach they bring, and are they coming from more of a first team perspective? Or are they coming from more of an academy perspective? We'll see what's next. And for Scott, I'm intrigued to see what this new kind of role could be in a role with a overseas club based in the U.S. You're seeing more of that, and I think Scott and his background with working with youth national teams and being involved in lots of player development situations, he seems to be really a perfect fit for that kind of role in terms of helping find and groom players in the U.S. for clubs overseas. Seems to be a good fit, and it seemed to be, we haven't heard anything yet officially, but the reporting was not that it was a decision where he was being let go. It was that he was taking another opportunity, and these things happen. So I would like to say thank you to Scott for always taking time for us. He did a couple 1v1s with us. The one we did at the end of the season was a lot of his time that he was very happy to give. Always a fun conversation. And I think some of the things you saw with the first team in the title run, Scott had a hand in. Miles Robinson and his development, the games he got with Atlanta United 2 and playing different roles in the back line, gave him the ability to step in the postseason when you needed him. That was huge. George Bellows' performance, you can give Scott Donnelly a lot of credit for that, the games he got in USL as well as the games he got in the academy. Andrew Carlton's development, the minutes he gave you at the first team level, a lot of that is down to Scott Donnelly, and I think this season is going to be one of those big years for Andrew Carlton's overall long-term development because he was pushed in ways that he had never been pushed before. A lot of that was down to the work at ATL UTD too. So we will see what's next in terms of management of Atlanta United 2. Scott Donnelly, according to Doug Robertson and Felipe Cardenas, is leaving the club for other opportunities. We're going to take our final break, come back, wrap up a Friday flashback edition. More of your favorite matches after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Final segment, Soccer Down Here, January 11th. Final segment for the week. The final week of the off-season for Atlanta United. Crazy. Bonkers. Monday show timing is a little bit TBD. It will be in the afternoon. It will be a combined effort with soccer over there, down here, soccer down here, over there, whichever way you want to put it. It's going to be one of those deals. 92.9, the game will be on site at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground from 6 a.m. until 7 p.m. with John and Hugh, morning show broadcasting live, Rick and John, midday show broadcasting live, Dukes and Bell afternoon show broadcasting live, Frank DeBoer introductory press conference at 11 a.m. Frank will be on air with Dukes and Bell. Mike Conti and myself will be on air with everybody at different points in the day. We'll also have other interviews as the day goes on, both on air and on 92.9 The Game digital properties. So be on the lookout. We'll be trying to catch up with as many people as possible. It's the first day players report. Don't know if any actual training sessions will hit the field. It's more of reporting and medicals and that type of stuff. So the introductory press conference will be, definitely interesting. I think a lot of people have been waiting to hear from Frank DeBoer, and he will speak to the media on Monday for the first time. And with the reports about the team training outside of the Atlanta area a lot in preseason, this might be one of the only opportunities for the whole media corps to get a chance to talk to Frank in a significant way. Doug Robertson, our friend from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, did say that he will be in California for at least part of Atlanta United's training camp out there following the team, and he is also booked for Costa Rica as well. So Doug will be on the case, but Monday will be later in the day. All kinds of coverage all day long over at 92.9 The Game, both on radio and on digital and on social, and anything else we can push out to you, we will try to do that. Favorite matches was the Friday flashback question, and Alex, our Greek friend, of course, went with the 2004 European final. No one even thought we would make it to the final, let alone beat Portugal to take the cup. We won 1-0 from a Charisteas header. The family went nuts. I remember watching that game at the brew house, and I think everybody but like 5 people were pulling for Greece, because this was at the height of the time when nobody liked Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, everybody was, he dives too much. Nobody likes Ronaldo. And this was the tournament, too, where he got Rooney sent off, I believe. No, it was 2006. Sorry, it was not. This was at the time when Ronaldo was just diving a lot, all the time. And I think he cried after losing in the final, and people laughed at that. But Greece, with one of the biggest upsets in world soccer history, winning the European final in 2004 in Portugal, beating the home side. That's one that I remember watching live at a pub, at a bar. Jarrett, do you have any games like that you remember watching at a bar that you had like an atmosphere around it that always stick with you?
In a bar?
Or at a party?
Yeah,
it was. Group.
Yeah. I remember watching the USA Portugal game at the park in Brookhaven, in the World Cup, where Clinton Dempsey scored with his crotch.
There's that.
And then, you had the bad giveaway at the very end, and Ronaldo's involved in the goal at the death to
give Jermaine Jones his credit. He scored one of the greatest goals in U.S. men's national team history.
Oh, Jermaine Jones did the pitcher batting equivalent of swing hard in case you hit it, and just lashed the living what out of that ball. And the gods just took that ball over. I'll never forget the keeper just standing there like, well, that's fast. Nope, I guess that's going to the net. Not going to do much about that one. No, I'll always give Jermaine Jones credit for that goal, because there's one of the back angles. If you look at that goal, if you go back and look at the replays of it, there's one angle where it's sort of, I think it's a slash camera, but it's like off of an angle, and it's kind of behind Jermaine Jones because how he shot it, where you can see the way the movement he put on that ball and the pace, and you realize it's literally unstoppable. That was a fun game. Just, after the fact, it was very sad and silly, but everybody was kind of down in the dumps because both goals Portugal scored that day were off of bad giveaways from the United States. So there was that feeling of we should have done better.
Mm-hmm. And not seeing that game out affected the rest of the tournament and gave them no legs against Belgium in the round of 16. Nice job, Jurgen. Did not like that one at all.
Thanks.
I will always remember watching the Ghana game from that tournament at Diesel Filling Station in Virginia Highlands on North Highland, because of scoring so early, and then the come down after Ghana gets a goal, and then the John Brooks header that everybody lost their minds on. But the one that I think always remember is the Algeria game in 2010, just because that to me was the moment that U.S. soccer needed in terms of that's the Lake Placid moment with U.S. hockey. That's the dream team kind of moment. That's that just transcendent moment that, for me, I'll always remember where I was, and I'll always remember like how all that happened. Never forget it. Never forget doing a shot of Jaeger at noon, because that was a 10 o'clock kickoff. After that,
wow,
that was,
sounds good.
Wow,
it was like breakfast.
It did not taste like breakfast, Jarrett, at all.
Well, I never see. Okay, I never had that bad Jaeger experience that everyone else did in life. Jaeger and I are really good friends.
You're in the minority, son.
It's
I know.
it's not good. It's not evil. There's other drinks that I would put in the evil category, but it's not my first choice, or second, or third, or fourth. Especially if it's not completely ice cold. Luckily, this one was, so it was good. As good as it can be.
So, with John Brooks goal, I vividly remember I was at work. This was back when I was working in traffic, and one of my coworkers was literally 3 feet from me doing a live report for a radio station as that ball goes in the net, and and I'm just running around in circles behind him, doing everything I can to make sure that traffic report doesn't have a suck at Ghana as a traffic fed.
I remember watching the Portugal game from 2002 in the middle of the night and watching the U.S. go up 3-0 and losing my mind, but it's the middle of the night, so I'm trying not to run around screaming and waking everybody up. So I was running around silently screaming, not making noise, but just running in circles watching that. It was nuts. No, not even doing that. Just running around, like freaking out, like watching this thing happen, and it was insane. But it did happen. It was real.
What other? Note, I went.
Go ahead.
I went. There was one time I went from treating the U.S. national team from a heel to a face in about 45 minutes. So, 2006 World Cup. I didn't even get the second the Slovenia game. I didn't even get up to watch the Slovenia game. I was like, I'll get up when I get up. I wake up, it's 2-0, and I just laughed like, I'm going to sit here and watch this team burn to the ground because apparently that's what they're just going to do today. And I'm just going to lean into this because they were just making me angry. So I just hate watched. I was like, I'm just going to hate watch USA Slovenia, and then USA comes back, and by the end of it, I'm standing in my living room, jumping up and angry about the disallowed goal for whatever. I don't forget what the reason was.
That was 2010. It was the Bradley goal
2010
that was disallowed, wasn't it? Or was it out?
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, I forget. It was 2010, not 2006. You're right. But I just remember hate watching the first half of that game, being like, "This sucks," and I'm just going to watch it and hate myself and hate everything. And then all of a sudden they crawl back into it, and you have the late goal. It might have been Bradley. I don't know. It's like they got a free kick, and then the referee blew the play dead the second the ball got hit, and no one really knew why. And he didn't have to answer why. Everyone was just confused. There were like petitions on Facebook to have that referee banned. It was amazing.
Oh, I think that might have been Maurice Edu who scored that, if I'm not mistaken. I need to go back and look at that. I remember it. I remember the moment. I remember the controversy around it and not being able to figure out why that was not a good goal. That was a crazy tournament. That was a crazy tournament all the way around because you had it start with the U.S. and England in Game 1 and the Robert Green howler.
What a weird tournament because that's the one that ends with arguably the worst final we've ever seen.
Yeah.
That tournament also had Diego Forlan just evolve into a superhuman.
You had the Luis Suarez moment with the handball that people still, for some reason, hate him for, which I completely agree. It was the greatest thing ever because it actually worked. He was punished. He was red carded. He was sent off. But he forced Asamoah Gyan to step up to make a penalty in a huge moment, and he failed. And then Uruguay went on to win the shootout. He did it.
To this day, my wife hates Uruguay's national team for that play alone. Like, she actively cheers against Uruguay in every World Cup. Because she already doesn't like Luis Suarez. She didn't need more evidence. She already had a beef with Suarez because he keeps biting people. And then you add that on top.
Had he bitten anybody at that point? I think he bit people later. Well, he bit somebody at Ajax, which was not very well known. He was not known as a public biter at that point. I don't think.
Either way, I live in a house.
There's been too many biting
Uruguay
incidents.
is the heel to half of this house, and the other half of the house just enjoys watching Uruguay go out there and drag everyone down into a mud puddle.
No, they'll do that, and there's lots of people who don't like Uruguay because of that. But the Luis Suarez handball in 2010, I do not have a problem with at all, and a lot of people do, and a lot of people say like he cheated. No, He got red carded. It was a handball. He got red carded.
No, Maradona cheated.
Yes. Yes.
That's the difference.
I guess if technically you want to say they both cheated because they broke a rule, it's fine. But Suarez was punished for it appropriately, and Maradona was not. 2010 also had Diego Maradona coaching the Argentine national team and running around and hugging everybody in sight whenever they did well. And then not having any kind of a semblance of a tactical plan against Germany and getting run off the field. But, there's that.
The hotel bar I was in when Zinedine Zidane had the headbutt went absolutely upside down because a lot of the folks had no earthly idea what was going on. We're not soccer people and just saw a dude headbutt another guy.
Soccer people were doing it. I watched that game at the brew house of the final, and it was crazy because you don't see it happen because it's off camera. And you see play stop, and you see like conversations going on, and you don't know what's going on because the Italian players weren't even like all going nuts, pointing and screaming about Zidane. Everybody just seemed baffled. And then you see the replay, and it's like, oh my God, what in the world just happened? Why? Because it wasn't just a random game for Zinedine Zidane. It's the final. It's his final game. He had already scored a Panenka penalty in it that was just audacious. He had not quite single-handedly carried France to the final, but he had one of his greatest games in his career a couple of games before this in the tournament. He was at the top and going to go out on top, and he does that.
That image of him walking past the trophy is lasting.
Yep, that's one of the iconic World Cup moments that will always be there. Every montage of World Cup moments, that one's in it forever because it was that kind of moment. That's the thing about this game is you get these moments in games, and sometimes you remember a match because of something like that. Sometimes you remember a match because of what it meant to you, or you were there, or you saw something you'd never seen before. Sometimes it was just a great match. The Brazil-France game from 1986, it's a quarterfinal. Highly recommend going and watching it. It's just one of the unbelievable games in World Cup history. It was just an epic match back and forth that a lot of experts say is the greatest World Cup match ever played. The 66 final had a lot of that too, back and forth, England and West Germany. There's games like that are just at another level. And then I think we've zeroed in a lot on games that had like crazy late goals and drama. And one that we haven't talked about was the Champions League final in 99, Manchester United's comeback. I remember watching that on tape because I was working that day or I was in class. I can't remember which. But I taped it on the VCR and got home, and it was a lot easier at that time to avoid hearing about things. So didn't hear about anything, like shut myself in my room so nobody came in and said, oh, dude, this is what happened. So I watched the game on tape that night, and it was the same thing. At the first goal that equalized, I'm running around like a lunatic in my apartment. And then the second goal, I think I fell on the floor because I was just like, what just happened? 2 goals in stoppage time where you go from losing the Champions League to winning it in about 90 seconds. Unbelievable. It's just one of those moments that's the craziness of this game.
Yeah, one that always sticks with me still is even the 2014 final between Germany and Argentina. I will always vividly remember this. Just late in the game, Messi had the ball on his feet, took a shot from a spot where he has hit hundreds of times in his career and just dragged it wide. And I just remember watching it thinking, damn, there goes Lionel Messi's World Cup. And it was a shot and it was just this image in my head still to this day of, well, he's done that before, but the one time, it just didn't fire off correctly. And wow.
And the shots of him after that game goes final, and he knows that's probably the best chance he's ever going to have to win the World Cup. And he had to watch another team lift it. That's brutal. I mean, he carried Argentina as far as he could possibly carry it in 2018, which wasn't very far because they weren't that good. So it's tough, and he's going to go down as one of those players, one of the greatest of all time, but he didn't win the World Cup. You have players, like a Steven Gerrard, who didn't win the league. That's always going to be the thing that comes up, and it's a cruel game sometimes. We've talked about the teams that we have supported that win some of these games, and we're not thinking about the other side. I mean, for Ghana, that game in 2010 against Uruguay, I mean, that's got to be one of the most brutal days of sport in Ghana's history. You were that close to a semifinal, and it's a penalty away. All you got to do is convert it. You score 80 to 85% of penalties you take, and that's the one you don't, and then you lose in a shootout. It's just brutal. It's a crazy game, and that's why we love it. And that's why we talk about it every day, and why we just immerse ourselves in it. So please continue. If you're hearing this on the podcast edition, please share some of your favorite games with us. If there's links to highlights, if there's links to games on YouTube, share those as well. Always fun to do these types of Friday flashbacks where we hear about stuff like games that maybe we haven't seen in a long time, things that we forgot about, things that we've never seen. So share those with us on Twitter at Soccer Down Here throughout the weekend. Would love to continue this conversation with y'all. Monday, again, we will not be in our normal time slot. We might have some stuff pop up on social. Stay tuned. We'll be at the press conference for Frank de Boer. We'll be at Atlanta United's training ground for the kickoff of preseason for the Five Stripes. We will be live probably around 6 o'clock, 6:37, somewhere in that ballpark is when we'll start, and we'll do a 2-hour show for you guys, then combined with some soccer over there with the garlic bread warlord Nick Alifi as well. So have a great weekend. Thanks for listening all week. Thanks for contributing to our questions all week. We really appreciate it. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.